So I'm just going to talk a little bit about mindfulness, and I'm going to try and share just a little bit about my journey. So I suppose my journey with meditation, not necessarily mindfulness, but meditation, began a very long time ago when I was about 18. I think I was about 18. That was my first exposure to meditation. It was through the Brahma Kumaris group in Aberdeen. And I did a free 6-week course with a couple of friends. And it did have a profound effect on me. It was surprisingly deep, being that it was really my first introduction to mindfulness. And I had some quite intense experiences on that introductory course. However, I kind of moved more into the path of hatha yoga after that. I was already practicing a little bit, but kind of got into it in a bit more depth with my teacher, Ian Scourgy, at the time. And he was very big on pranayama, breathing, and meditation as well, meditation techniques to help still the mind, help quieten the mind. And so I learned an awful lot through him, particularly how the practice of pranayama can lead to deep states of concentrated awareness, concentrated mind. And then a bit later on in my 20s, I took a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation retreat. And this kind of blew my mind. The 10-day course, it was very, very intense. You live at the retreat center, and for the whole period of time that you're there, the first 9 days anyway, you're completely silent. You're sharing a room with someone, you can't speak to them. The only time you get to speak is with the teachers during your sort of meetings that you have with the teachers in little groups, or if you request an individual meeting with them. So that kind of blew my mind. The Vipassana meditation, as we learned it there on that 10-day course, you start by 4 days of just focusing on your breath. Just focusing on awareness of the breath coming and going. And after 4 whole days of doing this, I mean, you're meditating for quite considerable amount of hours per day. After 4 whole days of doing that, your awareness, or my awareness anyway, of the breath becomes extremely sharp. And you're just so aware of the subtleties of your breath, the subtleties of the air coming and going, to the point where it doesn't feel like air anymore, but you're actually aware that it's prana, aware that it's energy, it's life force. And then you move on to the next part of the practice, which is moving your attention through the body from top to bottom, bottom to top, up and down the body, over and over and over again. But, just bit by bit, taking your time over and over again for hours and hours each day. And it gets to the point where you've done it so much. This is my experience anyway. That I'd done it so much that I was no longer having to think about the awareness passing through the body, but my awareness was just passing through my body on its own, effortlessly. It just had become easy. So apart from reaching some very deeply concentrated states of mind, what was really profound about that experience was the fact that I could sit through pain. Now, I'm not saying that that is the right way for everyone to practice. It certainly isn't. And sometimes pain is a sign that you need to be kind to yourself and you need to move. And that's probably more the way I tend to practice now. But it was a good lesson. Working with pain was a really intense and valuable and good lesson. You sit for long enough, muscles do get tight and joints do feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, maybe get a little bit pins and needles. But I found if I was able just to turn towards those sensations and just view them as sensation and not as something bad, something to be avoided or pushed away or moved away from, that the sensations just changed under the light of awareness, just by paying attention to them, by noticing them without any kind of emotion or negativity attached to that noticing. And it gave me the insight that yes, things are impermanent, things do change, nothing stays the same forever. So that was pretty intense stuff. And after so many hours of working like this, so the pain in my body did dissolve, or it did on that first course anyway. I've done previous 10-day courses which haven't been the same. Everyone has been a little bit different, and I've learned something different from each of them. But those 3 10-day Vipassana courses that I did in my 20s were really profound experiences for me, and kind of blew my mind in a way and helped me to understand yoga and what we're doing in our yoga practice. And that all that stuff you learn about prana and chakras and energy, prana, apana, I experienced that stuff in my body, which was pretty mind-blowing, actually. It's like, oh yeah, it's all true. It's real. It's all true. But it taught me to be less reactive. And when I came out of that first course, because going back to the first one I did, I felt like a different person. I felt like a huge, enormous burden or weight had been physically lifted off my shoulders. I actually physically felt lighter in my body, like energetically lighter. My mind was clear. It was sharp. For the first time, listening to people talk on the last day when you're allowed to talk again, my mind felt sharp. And it was a wonderful feeling. And I thought, actually, no, I'm not stupid. I'm actually quite smart. I don't think that now, but at the time I thought, yeah, this is what it feels like to have a clear mind. What a good feeling. And then I went out, public transport, all the way back to Scotland, where trains were cancelled and things went wrong. But I was so chilled and so grounded and so non-reactive to that sort of stuff, which isn't me normally. I'm normally like anxious or worried about what's going to happen. So that was powerful. That was a real insight. You can actually rewire yourself and be a calmer, happier person through the practice of mindfulness. Then you get home and tried to keep the practice going, but after the Vipassana courses, we were recommended do an hour in the morning and an hour at night. And in my case, I just found that really difficult, really hard to fit that in. I was probably at that time doing had quite a dedicated yoga practice. I was up about 6 a.m. I did about an hour of physical movement and then 45 minutes of meditation. So that went on for quite a few years. But I wasn't able to meditate at night. That didn't work for me. So I did manage to keep that morning practice going for a lot of years until I had children, and then that all went out the window somewhat when they were young. And I drifted away from mindfulness and meditation, really. And I found all I was able to do was just maybe a little bit of movement, a bit of asana practice, a bit of hatha yoga, just to help keep my body from completely seizing up with the rigors of looking after small children. It's hard work being a mum to little kids. So my hatha yoga practice was just a way of holding me together somehow. It was the glue. And now that my kids are older, I've kind of been pulled back towards mindfulness again. And over the last 5 years or so, it's become a very important part of my life. And I've gone on to do lots of training, mainly with the Mindfulness Association. I've done quite a few of their courses. I've trained to teach the mindfulness-based living course, which is an 8-week course designed to give the participants a really good grounding in what mindfulness is and how you can start to use it in your daily life, how to make it part of your daily life. So it's a really valuable course. And I also did their teachers retreat. So I trained to teach. I'm currently quite drawn towards the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk. I practice with my local Sangha, and I've been on one Plum Village retreat so far, which was really lovely, really beautiful, great people. They all just modeled care and deep listening and kindness towards one another. Something which I found really inspiring. I undertook the 5 mindfulness trainings. I made a commitment to endeavor to live my life in accordance with these 5 mindfulness trainings. And they're a bit like the niyamas in yoga, so a bit much to go into here, but just beautiful, inspiring words to live by. And I try and study those on a regular basis. So mindfulness has helped me so much over the years, and it's going to continue to help me over the years. as hopefully my practice continues to grow and to blossom, and to help me to have the courage to be all I can be, and to share all I can share in order to help others. To help me feel grounded when things are tough, to help me understand that I am not alone. I'm a human being, same as every other human being. We all struggle sometimes. We all make mistakes. We all, or most of us, aspire to be as good a person as we possibly can be. And understanding that I am part, just one small, tiny, tiny, minuscule part of the collective whole. We are all interrelated, interconnected. And what each of us chooses to do with our one little short life is important, and it does matter, and does affect not only you, but everyone else too, whether directly or indirectly. And how we choose to live our lives affects this collective consciousness. So because of that, it's making me much more mindful about what I consume on a day-to-day basis. And what I consume doesn't just consist of the food that I eat, although that is part of it too. Thinking about where my food comes from, the work that's gone into creating it, and that it truly is a gift of the earth, and I mustn't take it for granted. So not just thinking about what I consume physically in terms of food, but what I'm consuming in terms of TV, computers, scrolling on social media, the news, all that stuff has an impact on how you feel day to day. So being a bit more choosy, I'm being a bit more choosy now about what I choose to listen to. And instead of maybe slapping on the radio, which is kind of my default when I'm in the kitchen cooking, I might just slap on the radio and I'll just listen to whatever happens to be on there. And a lot of the time it isn't really something I'm that interested in. I choose instead usually to either listen to nothing or listen to something I actually do want to listen to, like some kind of interesting podcast. I don't listen to the news very often. I just get the headlines now and again, because what's happening in the world right now is, if you think about it too much, it does become completely overwhelming. And I know I start to think about, what does the future hold for my children and their children? What's to become of us on this planet? And it's not that by not listening to the news, I'm blocking that out or suppressing something, because I'm not. I'm just choosing instead to nourish seeds of joy and well-being and happiness, and to try and sow them in my life and hopefully in the lives of my own kids. I'd far rather do that than sow seeds of fear and worry in their minds and hearts. But of course, that doesn't mean we don't take responsibility for what's happening. Each of us is responsible for what's happening. And we each need to do our own little bit to the best of our ability to look after this beautiful planet that we live on and to look after each other as best we can. And then there's our own consciousness. You know, what we can, what words do we say to ourselves? How do we talk to ourselves? So that's another form of consumption. Do I believe my own thoughts? Do I believe the negative comments, the critical comments that come up in my mind regarding myself and maybe others too? So a big part of my practice is just becoming more aware of those thoughts that come up in my head, those judgmental thoughts, those negative thoughts, even becoming aware of the positive thoughts and just noticing that too. But just to take care not to believe my own thoughts, because my thoughts are just a product of habits created over time and habits maybe inherited from my ancestors, my parents, their parents, coming down through the ancestral line. Who knows? But just to become aware and instead to nourish those kind thoughts. And for me, that's hard because I found that I'm a habitually critical person, mostly of myself. I'm hard on myself. So the practice of kindness has become important and I'm getting better at it. The more you do something, the better you get at it. It's all about practice. And if you want to become a kinder, more compassionate person, which I do, I aspire to be a kinder, more compassionate person. For someone like me, you need to practice it. For some people, they just are that anyway. They're just like, you meet people who are just so loving and they're so kind and generous and warm. I'm not that person. So I really need to make the practice of kindness a priority. So things like loving kindness meditations, cultivating compassion towards myself when I screw up, which I do all the time. So gradually, mindfulness is transforming me, but it's always a work in progress. I'm a slow burner. It's been many years of practice. But I love knowing that I'm on this path of gentle transformation, gradually turning around all the negative habits, gradually becoming more aware of when I'm being controlled by my emotions, by fear, by embarrassment, by anger, by hate, by greed. and learning to recognize when that's happened or when it's happening. And if you can recognize when it's happening, then you can choose not to react to it. Again, that's hard and it takes time. Anyway, I think that's all I'm going to say just now. Aside from the fact that I am hoping to run another 8-week mindfulness-based living course starting on I think it's the 28th of January. It's the 28th of January. It's a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. And if I get even just 3 people signing up for that, it will be run online. And we'll be meeting up every Tuesday from the 28th of January for the following 8 weeks. There is more information on my website at www.thehilltopyogi.com. Just go to mindfulness courses and have a read through. I think on the top of the page, it's my online course, but if you scroll down a little bit further, there's more information about the mindfulness-based living course. There's an introductory session, which is free, on Tuesday, the 14th of January at 7 p.m. You can sign up to that, register for that. That's also online. You can register for that on my website, as well as the MBLC. No payment will be taken at this stage. Once I have enough people, and I would say a minimum of 3 for the MBLC to have a good group dynamic, then we'll sort all that out. But if you're interested, then go have a look and sign up for it. And you won't regret it. It's a really good little course to give you a firm grounding in the practice of mindfulness and just to get you started in a supportive group. So thanks for listening, and I'll hopefully see you sometime soon.